Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you a Scintillating Legion video. So, Scintillating Legion got a buff. It's a tiny one, but a pretty big one too. Tiny in the fact that I don't know if anybody's going to care too much about this, unfortunately. Pyrogenesis went down from 2 command points to 1. That is the stratagem. That during your shooting phase, or the fight phase, one Legion's Demonica Tzeentch unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, add 2 to the strength characteristic of weapons equipped by models in your unit, or spend 1 flux token and add 3 to the strength characteristic of those weapons, and improve the AP characteristic of those weapons by 1 instead. So, for 1 CP and 1 flux token, plus 3 strength, plus 1 AP. If you don't do the flex token, plus 2 strength. It's pretty good, especially considering that Kairos now, actually, full disclosure, have a video privated because I was going to talk about putting Kairos in your list before all the changes, and I thought I was safe, but nope. Here we're redoing it, which I don't mind because I think Kairos is kind of dope. You should be including him more, in my opinion, if you do kind of anything chaos related. With one head looks forward, at the end of your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, take a leadership test for this model. If that test is passed, you gain 1 command point. So on a 6-up, you get a command point, which is good not only for demons, but for things that you can ally into that might not have command point generation. I don't know if the change host of Deceit is even good enough to try it. Um, Actually, it might be. I think a lot of people rag on the blended detachment just because, so there's a chance. I have to review that. But Chaos Knights, they apparently might be cheaper, as the rumors say, and there's like no command point generation last I checked, so that could be helpful. It could also be helpful that because Kairos is Kairos, you also have one head looking back. Each time your opponent targets a unit from their army with a stratagem, if that unit is within 12 inches of this model, increase the cost of the use of that stratagem by 1 command point. It can't stack. It can't stack because one thing that I've talked about before, and funny, I covered it, and then like a week or so later they FAQ'd it. Um, if you take if you ally in Kairos at CSM and you bring Cypher, you get 2 auras of Vect. That's the term for anybody newer on that one, or that's the term I get the nickname. Sure, that's what we call this aura of increase. I guess technically it's Lord of Deceit. Vect was something else. That's the aura for increased command point usage. So you get 2 auras of it, but if somebody is in the middle of the Venn diagram, they don't get increased by 2. They still only increase by 1. But yeah, Chaos Knights, CSM, Thousand Suns. If you need command point generation, it might not be the worst idea to include 270 points for T10, 4-up invo, and 20 wounds. It's still 20 wounds and has gun, good enough gun. So Kairos looking pretty decent. But if anybody needs a refresher on what you even do in Scintillating Legion, basically you get flux tokens, you can spend them to re-roll some shit. Advance roll, hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, save and throw, or hazardous test for Legion's Demonica Tzeentch units. Or uh, you can just use them to increase the effect of some stratagems. We'll get to, well, as we saw with Pyrogenesis, right? You could do that. But when you spend a flux token, your opponent gains a flux token. However, they can only use them on an advance roll, a hit roll, a wound roll, or saving throw. So no hazardous test. Uh, yeah, is that the only thing that they really can't do? I'm pretty certain, like, no hazardous test. So if they're hazardous, and maybe something else. But yeah, and you swap flux tokens back and forth. In your command phase, if your opponent has 1 or more flux tokens, you gain 1 flux token. So if they don't want to just give you 1 back, but they're holding on to it, in your command phase, you still get 1. And if you have Inescapable Eye on a Legiones Demonica Tzeentch unit, in your command phase, if the bear is on the battlefield, if your opponent has 1 or more flex tokens, you gain an additional flex token. You are taking this every time. Infernal Puppeteer, if you put it on a monster, 10 points each time the bearer is selected to shoot. You can select one other friendly Legion's Demonic or Tzeentch unit within 9 inches of the bearer. You can determine range and visibility from any model of your choice in that selected unit. So you string out some blue horrors or some pink horrors. Blue horrors for infiltrate and -1 leadership, because you do have something that can help you extend that shadow of darkness. I always forget. Shadow of Chaos. You can extend that Shadow of Chaos to make the test and get some mortals going. You string them out. Just take one little guy, look at somebody, and now you're determining, let's go with 24 inches from that. Neverblade, put it on a monster, improve the strength of melee weapons equipped by the bear by 2, AP and attacks by 1, and +1 to hit. Improbable shield, 30 points. Tzeentch model only, while a friendly Tzeentch unit is within 6 inches of the bearer. 4-up, feel no pain against psychic and mortal wounds. Not for 30 points, but, hey, if that's your flow, I can't stop you. Now, going to some things that I was alluding to, you have Impossible Eclipse. Any phase. One Legion's Demonic or Tzeentch monster unit from your army that is not on the battlefield. Select one no man's land or your opponent's deployment zone, or spend one flex token and select both until the end of the phase. The selected areas of the battlefield are within your army's Shadow of Chaos. So, if something's within Shadow of Chaos, fails a leadership test, that means that, fails a battle shock test, excuse me. That means that they take D3 mortal wounds. That also means that if they need to take a battle shock test, they are doing it at -1. So, it has its uses, especially with some of the things or I'm thinking namely one thing in Tzeentch. But yeah, I guess you could also do some tests with one of the horrors shooting in combination with their leader. But Scintillating Legion hasn't been that favorite. It actually did something interesting in Australia, and then did something semi-interesting again, but I forget where the second time was. So yeah, Kairos is better. Consider putting Kairos in places. But also, now that Pyrogenesis is down to 1 command point, that means more often than not, your Lord of Chains can shoot with strength 13. Did I do that math right? Let's see. +1 to the strength. Yep. Plus another 3. Scintillating Legion. Yep. And +1 AP. Yeah, so strength 13. AP 3 or 2, technically. Bolt of Change, and if you take the hazardous test, you have a flux token to reroll it if you fail. So, Lord of Change, pretty decent. You also have Master of Magics of the Lord of Change. I should say Demon Lords of Tzeentch is how you get the bonus strength, while the friendly Tzeentch unit is within 6 inches of this model. Each time a model unit makes a ranged attack, +1 to the strength characteristic of that attack. You are always within 6 inches of yourself. Master of Magics, in your shooting phase, select one of the following abilities. Ignore cover, lethal hits, sustained hits D3. Until the end of the phase, this model's Bolt of Change has that ability. So, 9 attacks, sustained hits D3, 18 inches. That probably has Infernal Puppeteer. So that way, you can, again, make that effectively increase that 18 inches by 9 inches, right? So 27 inches of range on Bolt of Change. Rod of Sorcery, if you also choose to take that, going up to 21 inches of range. Pretty decent. Pretty decent. Sustained hits D3. Things will pop. The damage is D3, but that means it's at least a minimum of 1. So there you go. Now, moving on to another thing about how, well, there was a buff, there was a bit of a nerf. So if you go to the chapter approved tournament companion and you go to the base size guide down here, you can then go I'm doing this because sometimes people get a little bit lost in the sauce trying to find this. You go to Chaos Demons. The build typically had soul grinders, but now soul grinders have to be on a ridiculous 160mm base to play the game of 40k and chapter approved. That's very, very not good. So, if you just made your Soul Grinder Tzeentch, you could throw them into Scintillating Legion, and in fact, a lot of the Chaos Demon list across all of the Chaos Demon list, factions, whatever, uh, did pretty well when you had Soul Grinders. Did that mean that Soul Grinders were busted? I didn't think so. Uh, but apparently they needed to be looked at, and it's their time approaching. Are they still in, like, were they ever in AOS? I forget which game mode has who, or which 40k, the 40k, realm. Goodness, has what? So yeah, they've been pumped to 160 millimeter bases. So you get some, and you get some taken away with, I guess, in typical Tzeentch fashion. So that's unfortunate. Scintillating Legion has some things. Let's continue on with those things. Because now, is it worth a Demon Prince of Chaos? Maybe. You can still make this Tzeentch included in the list, and within 6 inches, models have stealth. That's alright. Um, it's alright. And Demon Prince of Chaos with wings. I don't know why the regular Demon Prince didn't get blown up around infantry like the CSM Demon Prince did, but maybe they'll remember that that Demon Princes are in Chaos Demons. Um, Demon Prince with wings. Once per battle at the start of fight phase, this model can use this ability. If it does until the end of the phase, add 3 to the attached characteristic of its Hellforged weapons. That's the melee. Harbinger of Death. Each time this model is selected to fight, select one of the following abilities. Until the end of phase, this model's Hellforged weapons have this ability. Lethals, Precision, Sustained hits 1. So, it's another possible contender for making Tzeentch and just putting on the Neverblade. So, maybe, just maybe. Past that, changeling. Why do I talk about changeling? Because formless horror. Each time an enemy unit wishes to select this model as the target of an attack, that unit must take a battle shock test first. If that test is failed, in addition to being battle shocked, that enemy unit cannot target this model this phase. 90 points, but going back to Impossible Eclipse, if you at any phase, if you spend a command point and your opponent targets a changeling, they will have to take a battle shock test at -1, and if they fail, not only can they not target the changeling, but they took D3 mortal wounds. So, just saying, Impossible Eclipse has a little bit more play there. Fluxmaster, it is while this model is leading a unit, each time an attack is made against this unit, -1 from the hit roll. Once per battle round, after a hit roll, a wound roll, or a saving throw is made for this model, you can change the result of that roll to a 6. So, you lead blue or pink horrors, -1 to hit, a little bit more durable. You can do all the shenanigans. But also, the other ones that can lead them, boom, 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 the change caster. While this model is leading a unit, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have sustained touch 1. That's again pretty good, especially with Arcane Fireball possibly being boosted in strength again. All of a sudden, your blue horrors on top of that, it's also kind of funny, your blue horrors or pink horrors are doing quite the bit of damage that they shouldn't be doing. They also have Storm of Mutating Sorcery. In your shooting phase after this model has shot, select one enemy infantry unit hit by one or more of those attacks. They have to take a Battle Shock test. Again, Battle Shock test, Impossible Eclipse. If it happens, -1, some additional mortals. So, just consider uh, the capabilities of Impossible Eclipse, which isn't too bad. I'm not saying that you spam it out, but it's worth it. And then maybe uh, it's until the end of the phase, so like you have to pick your phase on top of that. So it's not like you proc it in your opponent's command phase and they just have to deal with it for the entire turn. But if you do it in your shooting phase, that's one viable time because as we saw with the change test, you could do it then, and then your opponent's turn rolls around, you could do it then as well. Also, pink horrors, just looking at the profile, pink flames, pistol psychic, 2 attacks, bumping that up to 611. for each pink horror with 2 attacks, all of a sudden you just have a firing squad of little shits. And then blue flames for the blue horrors, of course, right? It's also pistol, so remember that too. Had the pink horrors, had the blue horrors, and the other one, that's the other thing that I was about to forget. This is why I put those tabs up so I could keep track of things. But Screamers. So, Screamers also got buffed, and people have been putting them in Shadow Legion, i.e., the Bellacore Detachment that lets you take CSM. Why? Because this is actually pretty good. People thought it wasn't enough. I don't know why they didn't think that. I was like, hey, why does that have anti-monster, anti-vehicle 4 up as 80 points? Little shits. But here we are. Everybody fucked around and found out. They also have slashing dive. In your movement phase, after this unit ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moved over during that move and select 1d6 for each model in this unit. For each 4 up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So yeah, take some mortals and then get Lamprey Bitten. Melee, 3 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 6, AP 2, damage 2. They have 14 inches of movement, T4, 4 up info, and 3 wounds apiece. Can be led by Fate Skimmer. I don't think I've seen many Fate Skimmers in any of the list, but it's to be said, while leading gives lethal hits, and once per bell at the end of your opponent's turn, if this model's unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can remove that unit from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves for 95 points. Most people are just opting into just more Screamers, and I don't blame them. So yeah, Tzeentch has some stuff, and Scintillating Legion is a thing. It's better for the most part. Like, it's just better. The loss, technically, you didn't even lose Soul Grinders, but if you know how to make 160 millimeters work, I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've seen. Have I seen 160? I don't think I've seen 160. Um, if you know how to make that work, if you're just like a savant at managing 160 millimeter bases on terrain, there you go. But yeah, Scintillating Legion lost Soul Grinders but gained Pyrogenesis just out the ass, which is pretty good to have out the ass, right? Going from strength 9 on a Lord of Change to strength 13 because of its own, that's pretty good. That's like pretty solid and will take out things that your opponent really didn't think was just going to lift off the board like that. So yeah, I think Scintillating Legion is better. Like, it's just a flat out upgrade, less confused. Well, it's not less confusion, I guess, but the way to make it work is just straight up easier, and that's good. So, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.